for game design is make changes, playtest, make changes, playtest. Many games will need a handlet or playtest. Design with playtesting in mind, your game must be playable two-player. If you thought it was hard getting one playtester, try getting two at the same time. One playtester, try getting two. Your game won't work properly with two players, don't make that game. This lose out most voting. This lose out most voting. Out worst voting. This lose out worst. Out worst voting. Trading, negotiation, and hidden identity games. You didn't need to wander into those specific jumps anyway. You need to wander into those specific jumps anyway. Make sure there's nothing stopping your game working with higher numbers of players, but leave it until late in development to start actually creating the components and structures for those extra players. Or make it easy to play. Your game should ideally be playable in half an hour. Your game should be medium light at most in terms of game weight. Many people can't properly play, enjoy, or analyze heavy games. Also, as game complexity increases, development time increases exponentially. Also, as game complexity increases, development time increases exponentially. No playtesters want to lead lose, not even a small lose it. They want you to explain the game to them. Just have a reminder card so players can look up the complicated and hard to reminder bit and how the scoring works. Tabletop Simulator. Once you have your online testers, you need Tabletop Simulator. That's what almost everyone uses for playtesting online. It costs $20 and simply provides a 3D space containing a table. You can import cards and other bits into the space and play all kinds of games in there. It's not hard to use. Here's Discord to chat with people and we play test each other games. Feel free to get on a Discord server and ask people more about Tabletop Simulator. I haven't done real life testing since about 2017. Are dealing with playtesters. Also ask your playtesters what their feeling were after your playtest. It can be hard for dealing with playtesters. Also ask your playtesters what their feelings were after your playtest. It can be hard for them. It can be hard for them not to give technical details or analysis. Hard for them not to give technical details or analysis. It takes time to drill this attitude into your playtest, or it can be hard for them not to give technical details. Playtest, it can be hard for them. Also ask your playtesters what their feelings were after your playtest. After your playtest, it can be hard for them not to give technical details or analysis. Also ask your playtesters what their feelings were after your playtest. It can be hard for them not to give technical details. Also ask your playtesters what their feelings were. Also ask your playtesters what their feelings were after your playtest. It can be hard for them not to give technical details or analysis. It can be playtest. It take time to deliver this attitude. Deliver this attitude into your playtesters and then have them be honest about they actually felt. Most players simply cannot separate analysis and feelings. Most playtesters need encouragement to say I felt powerless or I was frustrated. Others need encouragement to say I felt powerless or I was frustrated. Testers also ask your playtesters what their feelings were after playtest. After your playtest, when asked what they liked or didn't like, they tell you what would or wouldn't be fun, or tell you about balance. They also feel like they should also offer solutions, which are typically not useful. I have to specifically tell them that I really just want them to complain about things. This is a very important point. Negative feedback is really the only useful feedback. It's a very important point. Negative feedback is really the only useful feedback. This is a very important point. Negative feedback is really the only useful feedback. Positive feedback is fantastic, but you can't usually act upon. Negative feedback is a gold nugget, the nugget of new insight. I I interrogate playtesters specifically, asking them for negative feedback. I create a space in which negative feedback is welcomed, not awkward. What part was the least fun is a great opener for negative feedback. I'll sometimes add, was it boring to complicate it? What part was the too complicated, too wrong, not interesting enough? This specifically asks for criticism. There specifically asks for criticism, and the criticism doesn't denigrate. Denigrate. Criticism doesn't denigrate. It's denigrate enough. This specifically asks for criticism, and the criticism doesn't denigrate the whole game. This specifically asks for criticism, and the criticism doesn't denigrate the whole game. Denigrate. Denigrate the whole game, just the least fun. The least fun bit. It also isn't asking the player to analyze the game, only their own feelings. It's your job to cater to those feelings. I like to ask the big question too: is there enough or too much in the game? Likewise, also I ask them for ideas for new things. EIFN. What? What's in it for me? 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 That's what you should be considering from the point of view of your playtesters. Unless you are mutual playtesters. Unless you are mutual playtesters. What's in it for me? That's what you should be considering from the point of view of your playtesters. That's what you should be considering from the point of view of your playtesters, unless you are mutual playtesters. That's what you should be considering. That is what you should be considering from the point of view of your playtesters, unless you are mutual playtesters. They don't have to help you. Or make them feel valued. Make them feel valued. and like they are really helping. Make sure to agree when they are right or have a good idea. Don't argue when they are wrong. Unless you are just correcting a basic fact they are basing feedback on. Just collecting a basic fact they are basing. Unless you are just correcting our basic fact. Correcting a basic fact they are basing on feedback. Just listen. Tell players you are interested to hear. Tell players you are interested to hear their opinion. With you are even if you only sometimes act up on it. And thank them for their feedback. Always end the playtest early if the game breaks. Always end the playtest early if the game breaks. Or its programs become obvious, don't make the playtesters continue, unless they want to. Also, it gets easier when your game is good and playtesters want to play. Also, it gets easier when your game is good and playtesters want to play. I'm currently not losing playtesters, like in the past, when I was wasting their time and mine on an unfixable prototype. That you are the designer. Playtesters are not capable of doing your job, and that you are the designer. Playtesters are not capable of doing your job. They are just on a point. However, this has a not. Thank you. That you are not capable. Playtesters are not capable of doing your job. Always remember, you designer, designer. Playtesters are not capable of doing your job. They are just an opponent.
Not to be confused with quality assurance, that's for rooting out bugs, or focus testing, that's for market research. No, playtesting is simply watching people play through a chunk of the game, sometimes with a questionnaire or interview at the end, and then using what you see
Productive
and hear to
playtesting
drive
is
changes in the game's design.
provided
For
no
example, if Valve sees that the questionnaire is a play never have existed if it wasn't for this folder, as Chief Franks Robin Law.
Always remember, however, that you are the designer. Playtesters are not capable of doing your job. They based on opponent. You for feedback in years. The best I've done large sketches of productive play testing as playtesters who provided no useful feedback for it. to ignore negative we are trying to ignore negative emotions, not monitor them. In day-to-day life, we don't hold our back up close. One thing to do, but if you are don't fall over our back or groceries. That's how we do it. Emotion while you are playing your game, other players will too. You are creating an emotional experience here. You are creating an emotional experience here. And you can test it on a human yourself. Earlier in the development of Radlands, I noticed that I had more fun when there were less cards on the table. When there were more cards, the game could become a slog. Rewards hard to impact the opponent, while their slog was entirely fair. On it, Rust.
Genesis begins with a straight. About a year into the development of Portal, playtesters kept giving Valve very similar feedback, something along the lines of
Something to think about. That's their initial emotion a player has about something might be frustration like Elden Ring because of their challenge. But then there is our light emotion. Emotion after they conquer the turn, yes. But if you initially asked about their emotion, they would say frustrated. Yeah. There is an aspect of yes that is important along with the frustration. Elden Ring is not for wide range users, but it's a game hours.
that was a great tutorial. About a year into the development of Portal, playtesters kept giving Valve very similar feedback, something along the lines of, that was a great tutorial, I can't wait to play the actual game. Slight problem, About a year into the development of Portal, playtesters kept giving Valve very similar feedback. Something along the lines of, "That was a great tutorial. I can't wait to play the actual game." Slight problem, that was the actual game. Despite playing through 14 or so handcrafted puzzles, players were clearly missing some vital element that would tell them this was, indeed, a video game. And so, after a lot of discussion, Valve decided that the game needed an antagonist, someone to push back against the player, to provide motivation to keep moving, and to push back against the player, to provide the indeed a video game. And so, after a lot
antagonist.
of discussion, Valve decided that the game needed an antagonist, someone to push back against the player, to provide motivation to keep moving, and to put these puzzles into context. This was all training in order to defeat a boss. The end result was, of course, GLaDOS, a loopy AI overlord with a biting, passive-aggressive wit.
Yeah, this shoot to the dust box and fire it. Yeah, I did it.
He teases you, haunts you, tricks you, and the whole game leads up to a climactic.
懐かしいな。It's memorial to avoid this fire to the next stage. One showdown.
ワンオン
の戦いだよね。
one showdown in her central chamber.
Well, you found me.
Well,
Congratulations. Was it worth it? Because despite your violent behavior, the only thing you've managed to break so far is my heart.
Stu shot.
like Red Dead Redemption.
And killer voice acting, she has become one of the most iconic video game villains.
Yeah, this voice actor's ending theme is so great.
Of the time. But said
yes.
Valve's Robin Walker. Her genesis begins with a straightforward.
Genesis begins with a story. Genesis. Genesis begins with a straightforward process of ours. Okay. Or some organic and some humans. Genesis is monkey. Yeah. Our Genesis begins with our straightforward process of ours trying to solve the core gameplay problem in Portal.
Forward process of us trying to solve the core gameplay problem in Portal. Now, if you ask me, the fact that GLaDOS may never have existed if it wasn't for this feedback.
Bubble playtest wasn't for this feedback goes to show the bubble.
Just goes to show the value of playtesting, not to be confused with quality assurance, that's for rooting out bugs, or focus testing, that's for market research. No, playtesting is simply watching people play through a chunk of the game, sometimes with a questionnaire or interview at the end, and then using what you see and hear to drive changes in the game's design. For example, if Valve sees that players are routinely getting themselves killed when trying to redirect these energies that players are routinely getting themselves killed when trying to redirect these energy balls. Perhaps they should make a change, like having it so you can only place portal energies that players are routinely getting themselves killed when trying to redirect these energies. Perhaps they should make a change, like having it so you can only place portals on walls that are...
Oh, that's editor. Oh, this is just 1 year ago. Wow, recently video. I guess it's more old video.
Way above the player's height. And so on Portal, this approach was used to touch up almost every aspect of the game. Valve used playtesting to make sure the learning curve was perfect. They used it to remove moments of frustration, to make sure players...
frustration.
Was perfect. They used it to... Valve used playtesting to make sure the learning curve was perfect. They used it to remove moments of frustration.
Use it to remove moments of frustration.
To make sure players noticed key objects, to improve the pacing, to tweak the difficulty, and to ensure the storyline was coherent. Playtesting even led to the game's iconic visual style, with those sterile white walls and floor. Originally, the game featured cluttered and grungy and
funky. The word. This is prototype. The Portal guys looks mechanical and junky.
Environments, but playtesters found it hard to
identify the key parts elements.
Identify the key
elements. A prototype.
In one player spent half an hour trying to push a shelf onto a button, while completely ignoring a nearby box. Kim Swift, one of the key developers on the project, calls playtesting the most important thing that we learned since
coming to Baldur's Gate. Important things that we learned since coming to Baldur's Gate. Probably the most important thing that we learned since coming to Baldur's Gate.
It's coming to Valve. You see, if you didn't know, Portal started life as Nalbakya.
Started life as Nalbakya Drop.
Drop, a student project made at
hi,
DigiPen University in Washington. They were
I
invited to show the...
Oh. Yeah, I know the Portal is started from student project, but I didn't know the title. Nalbakya Drop.
Project made at DigiPen University in Washington.
They were invited to show.
They were invited to show the game off at Valve's headquarters.
And about how it showed a game off at Valve's headquarters and about
And about halfway through the demo, CEO Gabe Newell stopped the presentation to offer the entire team a job.
That's cool.
Their goal was to remake the game in the Source engine and within the Half-Life universe. And to help, Valve introduced the small student team to its game development process. Here's how it works. You start with a goal. Perhaps in this case, to make a puzzle that is clearly readable and satisfying to solve. You then take a stab at reaching that goal by designing something to solve. You then take a stab at reaching that goal by
Take a stop.
designing something, in this case, a test chamber. Next, you evaluate whether your design reached that goal by doing a playtest. And if it doesn't meet the grade, change the design
The grade.
repeat. Valve keeps going with this iterative process until it is no longer excruciatingly painful to watch the play.
It's in English. This is almost English class. ああ、ありがたいほど。
excruciatingly, excruciatingly,
excruciatingly.
Playtests, says developer David Spira.
Fantastic. You remain resolute and resourceful in an atmosphere of extreme pessimism.
Fantastic, you remained resourceful
Remain resolute and resourceful in an atmosphere of
an atmosphere of extreme pessimism.
extreme pessimism.
Perhaps, given the subjects of its most famous game,
Perhaps, given the subjects of its most famous game,
it's
Extreme pessimism.
perhaps given the subjects of its most famous games, it's apt that Valve sees game development as an engineering problem or a scientific study. Valve's former in-house psychologist, Mike Ambinder, says we see
in-house psychologist. Valve has psychologist.
our game designs as hypotheses.
Or game designers hypothesis. Hypothesis って確か病気だよね。sickness。ああ、両方、両方あるのか。ああ、仮説ね。
And our playtests as experiments to validate these hypotheses. Now, it should be said that playtesting is by
Testing is by now. It should be said that Playtesting is by no means exclusive to Valve.
It's exclusive to Valve. And indeed, every game developer sources player feedback at some point in the process. But the difference is that Valve is obsessed with it.
Cool. I am watching about playtesting video shared by Still News Work. Yeah, good. Their fitness app is progressing. Yeah, this video. Yeah, recently I read Ratran's game design article that I purchased recently. Oh, you see? You saw. I recently read these articles and I was reading this and staged this video and now watching. This Valve made our Team Fortress 2 SDK open source? No. Oh, is it open source? It's recently news. Oh, but Team Fortress 2 is famous older game. Oh, this. Whoa! Recently news. It's 2 days ago. Mod makers rejoice. We've just released a massive update to the Source SDK in all the Team Fortress 2 client and server. Oh, it includes server game code. Doing a big update to. Yeah, it seems historical resource game industry. Now including Team Fortress 2. It's funny. I will tell you this to my program friend right now. Try to build this after watching video.
To an almost religious degree.
Logistic.
The Valve is obsessed with it, to an almost religious degree. Handbinder calls playtesting the most important part.
Yeah. It's like artist. Yeah. Playtesting the most important part of the game.
Part of the game development.
Now we'll just detail.
Process. Gabe Newell calls it our secret weapon. And a designer who joined the studio in 2018 said, I always heard that Valve does a lot of playtesting before I came to work here, and I was not prepared for the amount of playtesting this company does. Valve does playtesting early. Swift and her team started running playtests of Portal after just 1 week of start.
We started running playtest of Portal after just 1 week of starting to build. Just 1 week.
Starting to build the game at Valve. Even though they only had one.
Just one
half-finished room to show people. And they do it often. Portal was playtested practically every week.
Every week. It's every week.
Do a playtest on Friday, discuss the results on Monday, apply the lessons the rest of the...
Alright, it's like development process of extreme programming. What to say that? Scrum. Agile development. Like...
the week and test again on Friday. It sounds extreme, but I think this devotion to playtesting makes a lot more sense.
Oh, it's Half-Life.
When you learn about the disastrous development of Valve's very first game, Half-Life. the disastrous development of Valve's very first game, Half-Life. About 2 months before Half-Life was supposed to ship, Valve realized that the game, well, sucked. The developer said you couldn't play the game all the way through, none of the levels tied together well, and there was serious technical problems with most of the game. As a whole, the game just wasn't working. The only real option on the table was to
Half-Life was bad at first.
scrap the whole thing and start from scratch. But this time, they would do things differently, which led to 2 game development philosophies that are still present in the studio today. One is the idea of the Cabal, where the
Cabal. Team up, where the staff is split up into
the
tiny.
staff is split up into tiny, multi-discipline teams who each take complete ownership of a small chunk
like
of the game.
modular.
But the other is frequent playtesting from the very earliest point of development. This time, if the game sucked, they want from the very earliest point.
The owner is frequent playtesting from their very earliest point of
development. This time, if the game sucked, they wanted to know right away. So about 3 months into development of the restarted Half-Life, they started playtesting. They found random gamers and video game shops and contacted people who filled in those little registration cards you got.
Those are
in old PC game boxes. They'd sit them down in front of the game and just watch them play. Each test would result in dozens of things that would need to be fixed, changed, added, or deleted from the game. Like after watching some playtesters break every
playtesters break every crate.
We crate in a level, Valve realized it probably needed to stuff some of those boxes with goodies like ammo and health packs. And this new process obviously worked. This version of Half-Life was a huge success and is now seen as one of the most important and influential games ever made. And as such, Valve would use playtesting extensively in all of its future games. On Half-Life 2, Valve planned to give out the gravity gun towards the end of the game. Game, but players loved using it so much, the team
but I gave up to play Half-Life 2 because my 3D sickness. Not using it, so decided to make it available
Team decided to make it available much sooner. On Left 4 Dead, playtesters found it hard to find teammates who were in trouble, which led to the X-ray outlines of your fellow survivors. And on Portal 2, a paint type that let you walk on walls was scrapped when it made multiple playtesters feel queasy. Walk on walls was scrapped when it made multiple playtesters feel queasy. The arrival of Steam allowed Valve to go further, converting millions of online players into post-launch playtesting. When Steam's data showed that lots of players were getting stuck in Episode 1, they released a patch to reduce the difficulty of a tricky siege battle. Plus, playtesting was instrumental when exploring an all-new technology. Playtesting was instrumental when exploring an all-new technology, virtual reality, for
VR version I played.
Half-Life Alyx. For instance, Valve learned that a player
ランスちゃん透明性だよね。
tolerance for standing around watching people talk was significantly lower in virtual realities. So, had to speed up the game's pace. Player behavior helped us navigate VR development, says Valve's Christine Phelan. You could almost think of the player as another designer. There is barely a moment in the game that you could almost think of the player another designer. There is barely a moment in the game that wasn't improved by what playtesters told us and showed us through their play behavior. So, from Half-Life 1 to Half-Life Alyx, playtesting has been an invaluable tool for Valve. So I want to share some tips from the developers to show you how to playtest more effectively. Though it should be stated, Valve is not like other companies. From its unorthodox organizational structure to its the resources, there are very few companies on Earth who can copy what Valve does. And also, this approach may work best on superlinear, extremely handcrafted story games, and other techniques like heat maps may work better for other types of game. But with those caveats out of the way, perhaps their experience can still types of game. But with those caveats out of the way, perhaps their experience can types of game. But with those caveats out of the way, perhaps their experience can still provide some useful guidance. So, tip number 1 is test early. Valve says playtesting is where we make the vast majority of our most important changes to our game. So we try to do it as early as possible on the project to get the most value out of it. When you identify a problem early on, you have time to go back to the drawing board and develop an effective solution to the problem. But do it too late, and sometimes the only way to fix a problem is with a flimsy band-aid solution.
Let's see.
I don't know, having the characters just tell you the solution to a crummy puzzle. Valve may start testing within a few days of typing a mechanic or designing a level, even if it looks hideously ugly with programmer art or bright orange textures on all the walls. But this actually helps them avoid wasting time on other aspects. There's no point investing heavily in art or audio if the game mechanic is going to be completely changed or cut from the game entirely. Number 2 is test often. Valve typically tests every single week to make sure they are constantly iterating on player feedback. This also leads to a huge amount of data. Iterating on player feedback. This also leads to a huge amount of data. Each Half-Life 2 chapter had about 100 playtests.
Each chapter 100.
For example, and that mass of information can be invaluable. By having a huge number of people look at the game, Valve can look for common trends in the feedback and avoid tweaking the game based on a few weird outliers. And the more experience you have seeing people interact with your designs, the better you'll get at preempting this feedback in future. Gabe Newell says, after you've watched a couple hundred playtests, you start to develop a much better sense of what are successful and unsuccessful design strategies. So, some famous lessons learned at Valve include players don't learn when stressed and players don't look up. Number 3 is players don't learn when stressed and players don't look up. Number 3. Is shut up and watch. A playtest should try to simulate the actual experience of playing the game, which means the observers need to stay quiet for the duration of the test. Playing the game. Which means the
means the author.
Observers need to stay quiet for the duration of the test. No hints, no guidance, no answers to burning questions. I think
Yeah, it's hard.
It's quite so humbling as being forced to watch in silence as some poor playtester stumbles around your level for 20 minutes, unable to figure out the obvious answer that you now realize is completely arbitrary and impossible to figure out, the studio has said. Post-game interviews and questionnaires can certainly happen. Those were instrumental in solving the GLaDOS problem, after all. But you'll often learn more by watching
Raw more by watching playtesters than talking to them.
players than by talking to them. Swift says they may tell you
Says they may tell you right. Swift says they may tell you right. Swift says they may tell you that they like the game.
that they like the game, but you'll really tell by their body language.
You'll really tell by, but you will really tell by their body language whether or not they actually enjoyed themselves.
Whether or not they actually enjoyed themselves. It's also a common game design trope that playtesters like to offer potential solutions to the problems they face, but as they don't have insider knowledge of your vision or constraints, these solutions are usually ignored. Number 4 is designers should run playtests. Valve does not outsource testing to a special department or leave it with a publisher. Playtesting is done by the people who are actually responsible for the design and execution of the level or mechanic in question, the Cabal from earlier. This shows the developers exactly what needs fixing and can give much needed motivation to improve the game. And player behavior might inspire new puzzle solutions or ideas for the designers watching. Like in Half-Life Alyx, players would instinctively cover their real-life mouth to stop Alex from coughing and alerting a would instinctively cover their real-life mouth to stop Alex from coughing. And alerting a gigantic blind zombie named Jeff. So Valve coughing inspire new puzzle which needed motivation to improve the game, and exactly what needs fixing, and can give much needed motivation to improve the game. And player behavior might inspire new puzzle solutions or ideas for the designers watching. Like in Half-Life Alyx, players would instinctively cover their real-life mouth to stop Alex from coughing.
Significant stop. Wait. Wait.
To improve the game. And player behavior might inspire
Fired.
new puzzle solutions or ideas for the designers watching. Like in Half-Life Alyx, players would
Cover their real life mouse
instinctively cover their real-life mouth to stop Alex from
cursing. Hi. The character cursing and they cover. And our enemy are to avoid enemy. Okay.
coughing and alerting a gigantic blind zombie named Jeff. So Valve
Turn the covering your mouth into actual game
and
mechanic.
covering your mouth into an actual game mechanic. Number 5 is
Okay. I understand.
The right people. Valve gets feedback from a huge variety of different playtesters, from fellow staff members to little kids.
So they get our new ideas from playtesters, our behavior.
Back from a huge variety of different playtesters, from fellow staff members to little kids, pro gamers. But it's learned to always have a target audience in mind when making changes. Like when Valve was figuring out how to make a climactic boss fight against GLaDOS, they initially got feedback from hardcore FPS players who said the level needed more action, more challenge, and more skill. But this idea was a gut. More action, more challenge, and more skill. But this idea was a dud. When facing this tricky boss fight, says Eric Wolpaw, the vast majority of playtesters who had gotten used to the slower-paced, cerebral nature of Portal were just frustrated, confused, and dissatisfied. They still wanted to satisfy those hardcore FPS players, but did so through optional content like Portal's advanced chambers and challenge maps. Number 6 is to challenge your assumptions. Okay, so maybe the GLaDOS boss fight didn't need to be a test of skill. So perhaps it needed to be the most complex puzzle in the entire game. Surely that would be a suitable climax. But here's the thing. Playtesters thought the game's midpoint escape, that bit where you use a portal to avoid falling into a pit of fire, players thought that was incredibly climactic and satisfying, even though it's basically the easiest puzzle in Portal. But Valve realized that the time pressure, the visual impact, and the high drama all made it way more exciting to players. So maybe they were overthinking the final boss too. We've been holding on to this idea that we need a complex puzzle at the end, and it simply wasn't true, says Swift, and so they settled on a pretty simple sequence. It's very easy for game designers to make wonky assumptions about how players will act. I recently made a whole video about doing this in my own puzzle.
Oh, this guy is game developer.
I'll drop a link to that one in the end screen of this video. Perhaps the most important tip, though, is that playtesting feedback is just data, and it's up to the designer how that data is interpreted, filtered, For example, Half-Life 2 originally had a very short introduction before Gordon Freeman grabbed a gun and started shooting. Playtesters loved it. Who wouldn't be excited when jumping into the action? And so, given this good feedback, it would be easy to keep the game exactly like that. But despite the positive sentiment, writer Mark Laidlaw says Valve decided to keep working. They thought it would be better to delay combat. We wanted you to witness the cops doing something horrible. Feel like what you were doing was a response to that, not that you were just a killing machine, says Laidlaw. And they thought it would lead to a better emotional payoff if you had to wait a much longer time before finally getting Gordon's iconic crowbar.
バールのことをクローバ
before finally getting Gordon's iconic crowbar.
Oh, and before I forget, I think you dropped this back in Black Mesa. Good luck out there, buddy.
Here's the thing. Playtesting is as useful as you make it. If you just bend the game to the whims and desires of every playtester,
Your chance to bend the game.
who comes through, you'll end up with a dumb. Down game or bland, designed by committee sludge. But if you go in with a clear goal, a specific game you by committee sludge,
That you allow everyone else to put the game together and you are the game designer has no input, then it has no. Okay. Some dream device or dream. Everything contains everyone's dream. Then it's Raj.
But if you go in with a clear goal, a specific game you want to make for a specific audience you want to entertain, and then use playtesting to validate whether you are hitting that goal, you can use this feedback to unlock the incredible game you are trying to make. Oh, don't click off. I've got one last Portal story while the Patreon credits roll. So, the invention of GLaDOS is a Portal story while the Patreon credits roll. So,
I see.
The invention of GLaDOS is actually not the most dramatic change that Valve has made in response to player feedback. During an internal game jam held shortly after the release of Portal 1, a bunch of Valve developers came up with an experimental puzzle game called F-Stop. In this game, you use a camera to take photos of objects. Then you can spawn that object elsewhere in the world, perhaps at a completely different scale. Gabe Newell loved the concept and said it should be developed as a follow-up to Portal, meaning each game in the series would feature a different piece of developed as a follow-up to Portal.
Recently, this concept game is out.
Meaning each game in the series would feature a different piece of technology developed at Aperture Science. But after nearly a year of development, playtesters were very vocal in their feedback. Portal without portals just didn't work. And so Valve decided to scrap the game and start Portal 2 all over again. In recent years, we've been able to see what F-Stop might have looked like, as fans have used leaked assets and code to make various recreations of the game. But Valve never returned to the concept. If you want to play something similar, then check out Superliminal, or wait for the upcoming photography puzzler, Viewfinder. Thanks for watching.
Oh, great video. This channel make game industry history videos. Knife XLW are using Unity. Oh. Oh. Want to watch all. Yeah. Okay. I'll do their series. In Japan video, this channel is famous to compile Japanese game industry history, and he have made their history video so well. Oh, but only Japanese. There are Riot Games, Respawn, Epic Game, Rare, Rockstar Games, Square Enix. Hey, wait. My brother has came. Okay, my big brother came my house, so and day stream is and I back to about 3 hours later maybe. Yeah, I will stream tonight. Okay, thank you for watching and thanks for share their super cool video. Yeah, I continue to watching that series. Okay, goodbye. No problem. I'll back.